Greetings, family. Greetings, and welcome to the Art of Rising. We're here about raising your consciousness and rising the vibrations. And we're bringing on wonderful people to educate you and to enlighten you and for myself as well. And we're having just a great time with this. We're growing by leaps and bounds. And in great part, it's by bringing on a gentleman just like this right here. Brother Carlos right here. He's coming from Mexico, right? Correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And he's fascinating subjects. His bio is chock full of wonderful things, man. So yeah, just tune in and enjoy the show. So Carlos, why don't you tell us, your full name and where you live and what are you doing with yourself these days?
Thank you, Omziel. I feel really, really welcome. You have this gift of making people feel welcome, so I really appreciate it. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Millan. I live in Mexico, and I have, for the past 5 years, set up a small research lab to kind of do independent biology research. And the unique perspective of my work is that for me, consciousness is at the core of life. I really don't think we can begin to understand or imagine life without consciousness. So, rather than placing a lot of emphasis, in the chemicals or in, isolated views of certain organs or certain processes within the body, I try to look at the big picture and recognize that there's a divine intelligence, guiding body functions for us, and that we are more empowered to build a healthy life if we establish a dialogue with that consciousness and with our own soul, with our own essence, rather than trying, to only use the left brain and trying to live in this delusion that we can identify all the components of biology and kind of try to control them. I think it goes beyond our understanding, but still science is useful to kind of find where we can interact with consciousness, where we can use technology to empower the process of knowing ourselves and healing ourselves, but from this co-creation, not from this, oh, I'm a human, I know it all, more a humble view of biology.
You sound like the ancient scriptures, right? Really, if you look a little bit deeper about some of the things that you're stating, like ancient people were saying these things like hundreds of thousands and probably far beyond that too, and where we happen to be in this very, very complex and intelligent design, right? But yet we live so much like cerebral here, and you speak about the left brain, right? That's where this patriarch society that we live in, right? It's about moving things, breaking it, shoving it, make everything, like, instead of like with the ancients, where they worked with the river and they worked with nature and those things, and they knew that there's a life and a consciousness, on a deeper level. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about well, let's go to the beginning. When you were growing up, let's start there. And how did you come to find out about these things and get on this particular road?
Yeah, absolutely. So my whole family is full of engineers, so I was expected to become an engineer as well. And I kind of um, found myself at a young age, around 11 years old. You know, I was at a very competitive school, and teachers were always trying to select people, you know, who they will say, oh, it looks like he's good at math, so let's put him at very advanced math training,
Mm,
and you know, let's take him to competitions and stuff like that, you know. And so I kind of dived very deep, you know, in college level math, postgraduate math, you know, from age 11 to 15. And something was missing for me. I mean, the more abstract it became, the more disconnected from everyday life. And I was saying, like, what's the point of this knowledge, you know? So around then, I found my first career calling, which was when I read The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. And I was raised as a Christian, but I didn't resonate, you know, with a lot of the dogma or the condemnation part of the Christian view. But with The Chronicles of Narnia, I found like this wider view of, you know, there's
mm,
this metaphorical divine principle, you know, and no matter what you believe, no matter what you identify yourself as, if you connect to this loving energy, you'll be serving this divine purpose. And for me, it was like, wow, yeah, I like that view.
mm,
And so for a while, I thought I was going to be a publisher because I didn't feel like writing those kind of books. I was like, I don't think I can write something like that, but I
mhm,
would like to find the next C.S. Lewis, you know, or the next Miguel Ruiz, or, you know, the next whoever can write a book that really empowers and inspires people. And I was actually lucky that this was when startups were starting, and I won a competition with a friend to start a digital publishing house in Mexico, and we were actually one of the first multi-platform like ebook applications. Like, this was before, you know, Apple Books and before Google Books. We were very, very early, and it was fun. With business wise, we were not any wise, so it didn't work financially. Um, and then I tried to work in a traditional publishing house, but I there was not a lot of freedom to choose new authors, you know. So around then, I found a Tao, like a combination of Qigong and sacred sexuality teacher, and I really dived deep into that, and I found, you know, a way of connecting to consciousness from a different perspective. And then
mm,
yeah, I just said, like, I think holistic healing is the way, you know, if publishing was not meant for me, you know, that happened around 15 years ago. And ever since, I've only been exploring the world of conscious healing. Yeah, and it's only in the past 5 years that I have dived deep
mm,
more on the science
mm,
side of biology.
mm.
And yeah, I just really enjoy and really have fun with what I'm working at.
That's beautiful. You know, it makes me think of something you said earlier about, you know, being that or feeling that disconnection of all of this information you were getting, yet like something was missing there too.
Mm,
And I think of some other people who have delved deeper into some of these as well as other ideas and theories and such of that nature, and then they end up like losing their mind, and they get lost in it, because in my personal opinion, I feel that it's some of that you speak about, the body and spirit. There's this connection, this holistic, this ancient knowledge that humans are, I feel, rediscovering again too, you know so now, the other part that I was looking into with you also, you speak about how the cells in our bodies um, have this consciousness, right? And again, it's like this holistic. this ancient knowledge, that the ancient ones have been telling us, So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What are your ideas, philosophies, or what you've uncovered scientifically?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this part of the work is quite visual. So, for those of us who follow you on YouTube,
Hmm.
I'm gonna share a screen, but we're also going to describe it. So if someone is just listening, they can also follow us. I'm gonna present screen,
Okay.
and you know, you're completely right that. We are only rediscovering wisdom that was already there. We're connecting again with it.
Mm-hmm.
But some of it, if yeah, thanks for
Hmm.
bringing
Hmm.
on the screen.
Hmm.
The concept I have found based on new technology to look inside the cell, because this is just starting, is
Hmm.
that all of our body is made of the same nanoscopic vesicles. And these nanoscopic vesicles, it doesn't matter if they are in your liver, if they are in your brain, or actually even if they are in a dog or in a tree. At this level of very, very small life units, we're all the same. That's why I like to call these units holosomes. And in a way, humans are just like a collection of holosomes that create a unique holosome, a unique vector of life, integrated by this. But what I really like about this idea is that, this principle that people shared a long time ago, that we're all one. Recently, science is just allowing us to really witness that we really are one. We are all made of the same basic unit, and if we acknowledge the infinite intelligence of those units and the intelligence of life in general, we have, way better probabilities to build a healthy, spiritual, and connected life. So, to dive into how I got there, this is the video of a chromosome, chromosomes aligning together to in the moment of mitosis, the cell division. Uh, I have never looked at that before, and the first time I looked at it, it was like those chromosomes for me are conscious. They are grouping, they are moving in a way, and I also feel there's a lot of energy present. So before I had access to the other technology, because this is old microscopy, now we are going to look at new microscopy. But the first minute I became aware of how the chromosomes look visually, for me it was like it's really clear, that our chromosomes are alive, and if the chromosomes inside a cell are alive and have consciousness, well, what other things inside the cell could be alive? Um, the current view that we have of the cell, in textbooks, high school, or junior high biology books, um, it's kind of very static. We have this idea that the cell is kind of a circle or semi-circular, and the nucleus is at the center, but we cannot picture just how actually fluid and ever in motion a cell actually is. So um, what I found recently is a new technology that is being used mainly in China. Kind of Western labs are not very eager to adopt it because it challenges a lot of current cellular biology. This new technology is called holotomography. And the big difference is it doesn't use direct light, it uses infrared light, and not directly on the cell, but through mirrors. So it's
Mm.
non-invasive, and it allows you to see the cell as it probably is inside the body, or more closely to the natural lighting conditions inside our body, where we only have infrared light. So the amazing thing about this is that we see that cells are actually, they don't have a fixed form. They are more like rivers or small ponds of water that connect to other cells, through these filaments of cytoplasm, the water inside the cell. And they are always in motion. They are always sharing these units of life, which are dancing around the nucleus. We used to believe that there were fixed organelles or fixed apparatuses inside the cell. They call them mitochondria. They call them endoplasmic reticules. But it turns out that the reason they call them that was because a long time ago, when the only way to look, with a high level of detail, inside the cell, it was through electron microscopy, which requires you to kind of slide a little part of the cell, freeze it, and then look at the frozen version of that cell, And then they found these bags and little beans, and they said like, oh, we're going to measure the chemicals of these bags and these beans. We're going to hypothesize what are the functions, of these cellular organelles, they call them, But now with holotomography, we can see that there are really no fixed organelles. There are really no fixed component of the cells. It's all holosomes. It's all these basic units of life that are constantly exchanging electrical current around the nucleus. And it's this exchange of electrical current, from one holosome to the next, that allows the cell to maintain an electromagnetic field of its own, and at the core of every health imbalance is we are not having a healthy circulation of energy or a healthy communication of the different vectors of consciousness. So these holosomes are not only connected within the cell, but from one cell to another and from one organ to another, And so as long as they are connected, they will be, in balance, and our whole body will, just follow the flow of divine intelligence, which is what really constitutes health at its core.
And then, how is it that you would theorize that we are connecting with these intelligent structure, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that, for instance, um, we can do to connect with them is energize them. Simply energizing them makes a lot of difference. And we know, actually, because of the research of Washington University biologist named Gerald Pollack, we know what energizes the water in our cells. And these little particles, which are made of peptides and amino acids. And what energizes the cells is mainly light, but not any kind of light, because fluorescent lighting that's at most of our homes is not ideal. Sunlight, of course, that's the best light, but even more specific, because sunlight is designed to cover a lot of functions, through the um, uh, solar system, and specifically on Earth, also a different set of functions. And for living beings, and specifically for mammals, there are two, different or specific light um, kinds. The technical um, term is wavelength. So sunlight travels at different wavelengths, and the one that nourishes our cells and the holosomes inside our cells the most is ultraviolet light, specifically around 280 nanometers of wavelength, and infrared light. And there we have a large range of nourishing wavelengths that go from um, 680 nanometers to actually 3000 nanometers. So that with infrared light, we have like a larger set of options to nourish ourselves. With ultraviolet light, there's a special magic that happens with 280 nanometer. I mean, like there are some devices that have been designed to work with that specific wavelength, and I will say their effect is that like they supercharge consciousness within your body, and then if a part of your blood or a part of yeah, it's mainly working with your blood. You can use it whether with IV plasma or directly applying to your blood the ultraviolet light. But when you kind of introduce a little bit of this highly energized state of consciousness, then the body starts to recover the communication, and some quite miraculous healing can happen. If you pair it also with your own intention and with your own awareness that it's divine light, literally uh, rising consciousness in you, and it's beautiful. I find it beautiful.
Yeah, actually, on the social medias, we're seeing a lot of this, like the ultraviolet light and also the red light that you speak
Yeah.
of as well. I have a good friend and brother that, yeah, he's regular in the red light. Like he came on the podcast. We had a group thing in the beginning of the year, and there he was, like with the red light, and he had this kind of triangle thing on his head, with his intentions. It was beautiful, man. Yeah. The science is there. That's the beauty of it, because as I was a kid as well, usually when you're a child, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for me, it was a scientist. I just
Mm.
love the way things worked. I wanted to see behind the scenes of things and creating those things. So here at the Omziel Healing Sanctuary, we do a number of things. We do breath work and we do an ice plunge together, right? So the breath work slows down the monkey mind, this cerebral thing that we're speaking about, like this overthinking, and then the cold water exposure, um what it does is it pushes you into the present moment. We spend too much time thinking about what happened to
Mm.
us or what we're going to do, when really we all we have really is right here, so it also helps us on that cellular level as well. So we have different events that come up, and one of them is that ice plunge that we're having them regularly on our website. We have an event page. In addition to that, I also like to announce that we are looking forward to our international men's retreat. Right, that's what we also do here, Carlos. It's an incredible experience for men to unplug, from society and take a deep dive into some of the things that may be stopping them, and helping them also to push forward into whatever it
Mm.
is that they want to do. Maybe they want to write a book or start a business or start a relationship or end one. I don't know,
Mm.
but oftentimes it's some things that are sitting in the back of our mind, the subconscious, so we need to just look deeper into that, and that usually happens when we get rid of all of the distractions. And how do we do that? We take people away, men, into the forest or into these locations where they're far away from home, where they can't just get into a bus and go, I'm going home. It's not like that. So What I would
Yeah.
say, anyone listening to the podcast, if you're able to stay to the end of this podcast, we're able to offer some discount in regards to the
Mhm.
international men's retreat. That's what we're offering. So,
Mhm.
yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I think retreats are brilliant, because for one part, they take you out of your usual mental configuration. You are more
Mhm.
open because you're in a new environment. But the other magic thing that can happen is, again, talking about mystical and ancient wisdom. They say, there's power in shared consciousness. The Bible said something like, "Where two or three will unite in my name," something like that. There will be power there. And
Mhm.
sometimes, yeah, you don't know why, but the community heals you. This community power. So
Right.
that's beautiful. And also, I would like to share my view on why ice plunges work, from the perspective of the holosomes, because um, it's a little bit, another level of observation. There are many
Yes.
reasons why ice plunges are good, but if it's okay with you, I would like to share.
Yes,
Yeah.
please do. This happens to be one of our staples here, Carlos. Like we do many things. We do gatherings and all of that, but this is the one. It's almost like a ruse to get people in order to teach them other deeper things. But when I spoke about being a scientist
Mm,
as a child, is this is one of the reasons here. My
mm,
journey is a long one, and there was some series of events that got me to the point where I'm at and able to share that healing modality of cold exposure. But my point is that science is behind this. You see,
absolutely.
I'm not against placebos, because placebos, if they work, that's beautiful, right? I mean, let's do it. It doesn't matter. It's helping you. But the science behind the cold plunge, wow, this really taps into the deeper parts of the consciousness, the deeper, the reptilian, some people call it, brain. And just taking in lots of breath is oxygenizing the cells in your body, so it changes you like on a cellular level. But I'm curious to know your views and what you've uncovered concerning the ice plunge.
Yeah, well, this is kind of very nerdy stuff, but since you mentioned you love science, I'm
That's
gonna
right.
dive a little bit into it. Um, Maybe you can bring the screen back again, just for
Sure.
reference,
Mm-hmm,
if
mm-hmm.
someone's watching. You know, uh, our whole understanding of the nervous system, for me, has like a pending mystery that it was there from the beginning, and uh, science just decided to ignore it. Like, we're not gonna deal with that now. Maybe they will solve it later. And it turns out it has never been solved officially by science. So what's that mystery? When they first started to explore the relationship between our nervous system and electricity, this is how it went, more or less. The first thing they did is they took a piece of a nerve, and they first experimented with frogs. So in the screen we see a blue colored representation of a nerve, and what happens is, if you make that nerve touch the leg of a frog, the leg will move. So they said, oh, there's probably some energy going from the nerve to the leg that's going to cause it to move. Then they made the experiment. Well, what happens if we take an electricity generator and we send a small current through the nerve, because they suspected that it was electricity traveling through the nerve. They called it animal electricity. Um, and they said, well, now let's see if with artificial electricity the nerves will still transmit the signal, and if it will move the leg, and it did. And then the next step, well, was what if we, directly apply electrical current to the leg, without nerve mediation, and the leg still moved. So they were pretty certain, hey, it's electricity what, sends the signals for our body to move. And that's not the full story, because they ignore this other part, which is one of the scientists, Galvani. He said that it was not electricity, as generated by machines, that it was something else, in nerves, what allowed for communication. Because the experiment he made, or one of the experiments he made, is what happens if we take a nerve, but we make a small ligature to tie both ends of the nerves. And that's represented here, the nerve in red color with the ligatures. And if you have the nerve like that and you approach it to the leg, it won't move. But the funny thing is, if you apply electrical current and you measure at the end of the nerve, the electrical current is being transmitted. Transmission is not impeded by, by the knots or the ligatures in the nerve. But even if electricity is traveling through the nerve, somehow it doesn't cause the nerve to move. And scientists back then said, like, well, but no one cares about these ligated or nerves with little knots. Let's just not deal with why it happens. But it's very important, because what it's telling us is that when you close the water flow within a nerve, by applying these knots or ligatures, the electromagnetic configuration of that nerve changes. And the holosomes inside that nerve detect that they are now an independent space of consciousness. So now their function, their consciousness, is not about transmitting messages, but it kind of focuses inward, and they will try to build a different system within those new confinements that the ligatures are creating. So that's why even if you apply electricity, um, these holosomes will modulate that signal, and at the end of the nerve, the electricity will still come through, but it will not cause the leg to move, because now the nerve is not saying, I'm transmitting a signal to move. It's just saying, okay, some electricity is going through me, but now my function is not anymore to use that electricity as a messenger for movement. So that's very relevant, because it tells us about the role of the holosomes, which they need to be in contact with the holosomes in the other part of the body, in this case, the muscle of the frog's leg. And if the ligature is there, then the holosomes cannot interact, and they will create different spaces of consciousness. And this is basically what happens when, something like cancer or something like Parkinson's disease comes around, is basically holosomes um, disconnecting from the general flow of communication and focusing on very specific functions, trying to do their best without a particular space of consciousness, but losing the dialogue and the capacity to interact with the rest of the body. So for me, what happens in ice plunges is that, well, first there's vasoconstriction, right? Because of the
Mm-hmm.
cold, all of our blood vessels, kind of tighten up, but also the nerves, and when the nerves tighten up, and then after a while they go back to normality, there's kind of there's a movement in the water of the nerves, and there's like a reset in the consciousness of that. And that's actually also why hyperbaric therapy works so nice, because yeah, both the breathing in ice plunges and the oxygen delivery in hyperbaric therapy, it's nice to charge up your body with oxygen, or more specifically with the negative ions of that oxygen. But what's even more healing, or what creates this shake of consciousness, is, this process of compressing the nerves and compressing the blood vessels, and then releasing them back to normality, because that will shake up the consciousness of these holosomes. And when they go back to, regular flow, they oftentimes, kind of make a recheck of the environment, and oftentimes they can re create connections that have been lost. So that's for me the power of ice plunges.
That's beautiful. That's so powerful too, man. Like it's been extremely helpful on many levels. It helps to change and transform people. If I had a nickel for every time someone told me, man, you helped me so much, like in so many different levels, and also with certain things such as pain management, right? Because this is on a cellular level, and you think of what is that arthritis of the body, which is it escapes me for the moment, but it causes inflammation to the body, and we had one person come through, and after she came out of the eye, she was like, I can't believe this. And we were like, what happened? She's like, I'm able to lift my socks over my calf. Like the inflammation, my body is responding, incredibly well. Like, and we just see that communication that's happening there, where normally people just wouldn't. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it shakes up the consciousness of localized parts of the body, but it also shakes up the individual human consciousness. So that combination is very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of the healthy growth hormones, right? That people
Mm,
receive. You can receive it to different ways through fasting as well, right?
yeah.
Because many scriptures speak on this. Again, like some of these things that you're talking about. This is like this ancient knowledge that the ancient ones have been trying to tell us. Where you should be fasting and starving the body. Why? Because it starts to communicate with other healthy cells and starts to get rid of the ones that are not healthy for us anymore.
Yeah, yeah. One of the visions I've heard about fasting, that it's also about disconnecting yourself from a while, from the consciousness of the food you are eating. So you kind of go inwards and focus on your own consciousness, and then
Mhm,
you kind of stop, as you said, the monkey mind,
mhm,
and yeah, you increase the awareness of your body, and
mhm,
in that increased awareness, there's a possibility to, yeah, recover
mhm,
uh, connections that were, unstable, or that were temporarily isolated, because that's the other thing. When you look at the body from the perspective of the holosomes inside our cells, there's nothing fixed. There's nothing. You cannot say, oh, this is disease, this is health. It's just life in different stages. And
mhm,
that's why I find it, kind of arrogant, or a disconnected perspective, to say we want to find a cure for disease, or we want to eradicate disease, because what we call disease is just the intelligence of life acting in a part of our body, in a way that's not benefiting the human unit, but it's still life intelligence, and it's still doing its best to preserve life. It's just, since we are not in a harmonic dialogue with that section of our body,
mhm,
there will be like, yeah. differences in the, I picture it like an orchestra, if for some reason the violins in the orchestra are kind of playing out of tune, you don't go and say, oh, I'm gonna fire the violin players, or I'm gonna murder them, which is like sometimes the approach of medicine. uh, it's what's happening with them, what's going on in their personal lives,
Mhm.
why are they not hearing the rhythm of the rest of the orchestra, but
Mhm.
if they are there, if they are a part of your body, whenever they are playing out of tune, it's not a reason to worry. It's just a reason to observe and make reflections on how your body can go back to one rhythm and one tune.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. These are things that have been around for a long time. And um, as you were speaking, I thought about what I wanted to mention before, which was rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh
That
yeah,
is the name of that. That's the arthritis that attacks your body with pain. And these signals that you get in the cold water, it's like that reboot. It's resetting, your nervous system and things of
yeah,
that nature.
absolutely. And in that respect of rheumatoid arthritis, and many other autoimmune disease, or that are
Hmm.
being understood as autoimmunes.
Right.
From my perspective, what science is missing is that they say that the inflammation is caused by different actors of your immune system. It can be white cells, in the form of B cells or T cells. It can be cytokines, which are components that promote inflammation for healing purposes normally. But it can also be proteins from the complement system, which are just other particles that have been identified as taking part in inflammation in different parts of the body. But what science is also realizing is that all these things that I mentioned, B cells or T cells or cytokines, or proteins from the complement system, they are not always meant to cause inflammation. So all of these things that are usually associated with breaking down tissue or
Mhm.
fighting infection, they can also participate in the preservation of tissue or in reducing inflammation. So it's actually not that any of the components of our body, which for me are all conscious, it's not that they have a fixed one-way function. They react to the dialogue of consciousness, um, between your human mind and also all the different information that's always circulating through the body. So, the idea that these kind of cells or these kind of proteins produce inflammation, it's even being disproved by science itself. It's like, oh, well, not sometimes they do, but sometimes they do completely the opposite, So it's not about the chemical composition of these elements. It's about the consciousness of how they interact with the body. And
Mhm.
I find that actually empowering, because it's not, oh, my body, silly body, it's going crazy and it doesn't know what it's doing. It
Mhm.
just, no, it's just receiving information that is not accurate, And when you restore the accurate and harmonic flow of information,
Mhm. Mhm.
then those same components will instantly, sometimes, as in the case of the woman that you mentioned with the ice plunge,
Mhm.
they will stop uh, acting in the mode of producing inflammation, and they will immediately start acting in the mode of reducing inflammation, And
Yes.
both things are useful. It's just about what information they are receiving. And in this case, the ice plunge kind of hit the reset button, and boom,
Mhm.
this is
Mhm.
instant
Right.
adaptation to what was best for the whole body,
Mhm.
and there's so much that we can do, in that direction.
Yeah. It speaks about that vibrational frequency that's coming in, and that's something that you would not receive from a general practitioner, a doctor, or a hospital. Usually they come in and they go, um I learned one time that they said, when they go, "Oh, it's an autoimmune disease." It really, what they're saying is, we don't know what it is. We don't know. So you know what? We're just going to tell you that your body is just attacking itself, and that's it. In fact, here, look, we're going to write you these couple of prescriptions and make an appointment on the way out. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Instead of explaining some of these things that you're speaking about, like it's just this information that the cells are receiving or they're not receiving, and
Yeah,
perhaps we should introduce some of those things in different therapies. You speak about light, and then there's vibrations too. They're rediscovering this thing again about these frequencies, where even ancient temples and even cathedrals too, that they have this
yeah,
harmonic frequency that they know already, that they were healing chambers.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, because as you said, the language of the body is frequency. And if we share with our body harmonic frequency, and we give it energy, because that's the that's the two parts that sometimes are disconnected. Because I've listened to people who say, "Oh, I tried a frequency healing device." I tried magnet therapy, and it didn't make a difference. And the according to my research, and there's a guy in Portugal called Nuno Nina who talks a lot about this. Um, when your body is depleted of energy, or specific regions, the holosomes of your liver or of your pancreas or whichever organ, they don't have enough energy to uh, action change. Then even if they receive the right message, they will say like, "Oh, I'm listening, but there's really no energy that I can access to implement that harmonization."
Mm.
So I think that's combining both aspects. How can you make energy accessible for the whole body, and then how can you as a second step, inform the body, or create this dialogue with your body through frequency and through personal intention,
Mm.
and combining those two things.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that conventional medicine, write off, as there's no cure for that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's really, that's like saying, um, well, we don't know uh, what could make the body change, but
Mhm.
it's a fact that the body changes all the time. We see all these cases of people, with terminal cancer, hundreds of tumors sometimes, throughout the body. And then there's a change of consciousness and the tumors disappear in
Mhm.
hours, and there's full remission, full recovery. So,
Right. Right.
um, yeah, for me,
Right.
that's also part of the power of the holosomes, understanding that the cells are not, these fixated entities,
Mhm.
they are a part of the flow of energy and matter in our body,
Mhm.
and they can totally transform, from one second to the other. It doesn't mean that we will always see these spontaneous remissions,
Mhm.
but they are a possibility. And it's also a possibility, more slow, long term healing. It's like sometimes your soul chooses as an experience, this miraculous instant remission, and
Mhm.
sometimes you choose consistent exploration of consciousness and healing over time.
Mhm.
But as long as you really devote yourself to it
Mhm.
and you ask for the assistance of the divine, I will say there's always a positive outcome, because um, even in the case where after listening to assistance of the divine and after listening to your soul, you realize that it's time, for this human experience to end, then you go with peace of mind, and you go
Mm.
understanding that your human mission has been accomplished, and
Yeah.
that's totally different, from going in agony in a hospital, don't understanding what happened, and feeling that science failed you, that God
Mhm.
failed you, and
Mhm, mhm.
um, well,
Yeah.
that's another topic, but yeah.
Right. No, I I've had these thoughts as well. Why these things happen, and it's the society that we live in. It's just what they're pushing these days, and for people to step out of conventional medicine and things of that nature, it's not an easy thing. People don't levitate toward it quick. They get scared. Like I'm sure you have family members as well as I have, and you find out, oh, they were sick, and then they went and they got chemo, and you're like, what? Why? Like they could have tried, at least try. They didn't even give it a chance. Like look into it, and I think that that's what you're saying also, Carlos, is that people should investigate some of these things. Why people get it and why people don't. There's lots of in betweens there and details. But people should at least investigate some of these things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I would like to share that there's a or well, on that topic, there's a documentary that Netflix released recently, and I think it's being quite popular, and it made me feel a little bit of indignation, to be honest. It's called Apple Cider Vinegar, and it kind of demonizes natural healing, or
Mhm,
alternative healing.
mhm.
Well, I will say the documentary itself is very entertaining. Like, it's well made.
Right.
It,
Of
it
course.
gets you.
Yeah.
But but this completely unfair perspective that is presented there is like, well, if you try alternative methods to heal from cancer,
Mhm,
you are being irresponsible and you are not listening to science.
mhm,
And we have all these documented cases of people who have died while following these alternative treatments. And
mhm.
it's like, well, yeah, sure, but there are infinitely more cases of people who have died following oncology. So
Yeah.
what are
Yeah.
you talking about?
Oh my God. Carlos, there's something that most people don't know is that there's hundreds of people who die from a prescription that a doctor gives you. And then
Yeah.
when other people turn to like plant medicine, which has been, you know, taken for thousands of years, and they're making breakthroughs, right? Even in John Hopkins University, some of these
Mm.
groundbreaking discoveries, rediscovery, that plant medicine like psilocybin and other big names like ayahuasca and stuff like that are
Yeah.
helping people on a cellular level from diseases and end of life. I mean, the science is there. Meanwhile, people are, going with this mainstream thing like, no, oh, the doctor said it, so it's got to be true.
Yeah, yeah, and well, they say there's delay in what frontier research is doing and what textbooks at medicine schools reflect, and
Mhm.
it's 20 to 30 years. So it's a huge
Mm.
gap,
Right, right.
it's crazy. And on that topic of plant medicine, well, again, I have like a very kind of um, big picture perspective of our human journey. So I always say death can also be a beautiful experience, and this obsession with preserving life as if life is, a material, uh, uh, confined and limited experience. Yeah, I don't resonate with that part of medicine. So some people are scared of trying plant medicine because they have heard that some people have died after ayahuasca ceremony of or psilocybin. And to that, I will say, well, it's such a minimum percentage, but uh, beyond that, sometimes your soul has the experience, and the level of understanding is just so big, or a realization that that incarnation is already complete. And then I'm very, very convinced, and I think there's so much literature and there's so much empirical evidence that it's not considered empirical evidence, because it's about the soul, but we're just neglecting that soul is a real thing, and that we have so much evidence for it. But sometimes what happens, and very, very oddly, with plant medicine, you decide to finish your human cycle, and that's always a conscious choice. At that soul level, the soul only departs when it's ready for the next experience. So at the deeper level, our soul is never afraid. It's just our sense of disconnection from our soul
Yeah.
what makes us afraid of it.
Yeah.
But well, to maybe uh, create a bridge for plant medicine, what I have designed is a device where you vortex seawater, a very specific kind of seawater, which is called quantum plasma, after René Quinton or Canton, a French physician who realized that our body has exactly the same mineral composition as deep sea vortexes. And the water in those deep sea vortexes can be used as a replacement for blood, actually, in the right proportion. So he called that isotonic uh, sea plasma. An isotonic sea plasma, if you use it as a therapy, either, orally or as IV therapy, it can be very healing. But what I found is, if you expose that quantum plasma to ultraviolet light, and also to frequencies that are the frequencies of um, psilocybin, or ayahuasca, then this message of harmonization and of inner connection, it goes into the minerals of the seawater plasma, and then you don't even need to interact with the substance, and the effect is very subtle, but you combine both things, because this after going through the vortex and through the ultraviolet light, you get in the IV therapy, a lot of negative ions, insane amount of it, just to picture, it increases the mass of the water around the minerals 40%. So in order to make a 40% increase of mass in these nanovesicles around the minerals, it's a huge amount of energy. Like, we cannot even picture how much. I mean, it's tiny. It happens at a nanoscopic level, but it has a lot of potential for energizing our body. At the same time, it delivers these harmonization frequencies, and the results of IV therapy that involves ultraviolet light for energization or negative ion accumulation is just like, I'm very excited about the future. I think it's going to go mainstream at one point, and I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, I feel so too. I think like any day now, there are states that are opening up in this way. And I know, for instance, there's a place here in New York City. We're in New Jersey, but about 20 minutes over is Manhattan. And they're doing these psychotherapy, assisted therapy. And, it kind of looks like a dentist office where you get your teeth clean at the same time, but I'm sure along the way they'll be changing more things, and some of these therapies are a bit on the ground. And what I would say most of all is for people to do their research and look into
Yeah.
some of these things. I think it's super powerful. I think some of the things that you bring to the table are just outstanding, man. And this is one of the reasons that helps this podcast and many more like ourselves to propel us into more mainstream and getting this message out, because it's super where else would you find some of these things? It's almost taboo. There's other places, right? Other podcasts, if you speak about some of these things, man, that's it. They'll cut you off, man. That's it. You're out, right? They'll cancel your show, right? But this is beautiful. Well, look, we're coming up on the hour. Why don't you
Yeah.
tell us, Carlos, where people can find you if they're looking for you to speak with you and to pick your brain a bit?
Sure. Um, well, my email is, well, the name of my company is Biome, like microbiome, but just the biome part. And it's biome.mx. That's the domain. And my email, because I think I have not updated the website, and the email is not there, but it's hola@biome.mx. And yeah, any ideas, any collaboration proposals, insights, I would love to hear if anyone resonates with this. And just as a final thought, I want to share that so far, all my work has been prototypes and sharing these prototypes with other holistic practitioners. But my goal for this year is to set up a clinic, like formally. And I think Mexico is a great place to do it, because it's so affordable, to operate and pay wages and everything. And, you can pay good wages in Mexico, at much affordable rates. And yeah, if anyone, resonates with that, the vision is to create a pay what you can clinic. So people who have tried it all, who are tired after spending thousands of dollars, in regular medicine, and they just kind of want to try something else, but they don't want something that's going to be also expensive, So the vision of the clinic is to have, for all chronic and difficult, life challenging diseases, to have this pay what you can model. So it's like, hey, we just want to offer the tools for you and try them. Do your research and really believe that you can dialogue with your consciousness, and the devices can help you heal. The devices won't heal you, but they will interact with your own life intelligence to heal you. And then the other side of the clinic will be like biohacking for people trying to stay young, and that. And there we can charge, regular fees, because those kind of people usually have the financial resources, to pay for biohacking therapy. So by combining those two, that's what I'm envisioning, that yeah, it can be financially sustainable and help a lot of people who maybe are depleted of resources, including faith, because when you're depleted of faith, that's kind of what is the bigger obstacle to recover your health or reconnect with your health.
Right, right, for sure. There are different therapies that are going on in Mexico. I don't want to mention some of them at the moment, but if people just look a little bit, you'll see that things are happening right across the border, right there, affordable and helping people too. It's just that in this country, they're just not allowing that at the moment. That's it. So I love your vision. I love to be a part of it as well. I want to check back with you, perhaps in a couple of months, see where you're at and how things are going for you, man. So thank you so much for being on the show. I'm gonna put you backstage just for a minute, close up here so we can keep talking a little bit more. How's that sound?
Sure. Thanks. I had a great time.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay right there. Don't move. There you have it, guys. Wow, fascinating information. Look into some of those things. We're gonna leave some of the show notes so you can contact Carlos and see if it's something that you guys might want to at least look into. and research at a minimum. That would be great. So thank you guys.